Good afternoon. It's great to see so many Rotarians. I was thinking this morning, I came to Boulder Rotary 40 years ago, so it was in 1986, and it's just great to see so many individuals here today. I'm senior active, so I haven't been here as much as I should be, but maybe after today I'll start a regular attendance. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Chancellor Justin Schwartz. And since joining the university from the Pennsylvania State University in 2024, Chancellor Schwartz has led efforts to improve student retention and graduation, strengthen pathways for access and affordability, and reaffirm CU Boulder's leadership in sustainability, academic freedom, and interdisciplinary problem solving. His vision reflects the belief that higher education must serve the public good and that CU Boulder must lead in shaping a more just and resilient future. Please join me in welcoming our Chancellor, Justin Schwartz.
Good afternoon. It's great to see you all. Thank you, Phil, for that wonderful introduction. I will just start by saying I'm going to brag a little bit because I have the best job on the planet. And one of the primary reasons this is the best job on the planet for me is the great work that Phil did in all his years as my predecessor. So please. It's great to see some of my new friends that I've met over the last year and a half in the crowd, but also the pleasant surprise of being reconnected with someone I haven't seen for, do I say how long? I won't say how long. For a long time. So Chris Coker and I last saw each other when we shared a stage in Evanston at our high school graduation. So it's a true small world moment. So for me, Rotary holds a unique sort of place. My grandfather was a Rotarian in Park Ridge, Illinois, not far from where Chris and I grew up in Evanston. And to be here today, not only with Rotary, but also in the JCC is particularly meaningful because my grandfather was, I think, if I remember my childhood stories correctly, actually the first Jewish member allowed to join the Rotary way back, long before Chris and I were even in high school, in Park Ridge. And he was very proud of that, and he was truly proud of his engagement and his membership in Rotary. And in fact, right after Chris and I shared that stage, my graduation present from my grandparents was a 3-week Rotary cultural exchange that took me to rural Belgium, which was my first global experience of any sort. Was a fantastic experience in terms of like seeing another place, another culture, with the side benefit of, and I think the statute of limitations has ended by now, coming back a true expert on the beauty of Belgian beer. So it was a learning experience in many wonderful ways. This year is CU Boulder's 150th year. We are this is the centennial state, and so this is also the 150th year for the state of Colorado. We're the older sibling. We're about 3 months older than the state of Colorado. And we are using this year to recognize and honor those who have shaped us through these many years, using events, using memorials, and using film. This started about a month ago, not quite a month ago, when we did the dedication of the Sealberry Plaza outside the CU Event Center with a few hundred fans, former players, staff, community members out there on a cold day. It was cold. But if you drive down Regent Boulevard now from either direction, if you glance over at the event center, you don't even have to get out of your car. You can see Sealberry's name on the side of the building. Next week, we will be in partnership with the Museum of Boulder and the Toni Morrison Society. We'll be dedicating a bench to Charles and Mildred Nylon, who are, at least as far as our records show, I've heard pushback, but no one showed me anyone else. Charles Nylon was the first black faculty member at CU Boulder, and Mildred was the first known black librarian at CU Boulder. So the bench will be placed in front of the Museum of Boulder, recognizing their contributions not only as being the firsts, but the role they played for the campus community in terms of hosting students, minoritized students in their home, giving them a place of refuge and helping this what was then a very small population of black students, a sense of belonging that was so critical to their success. And we're also being very mindful in this 150th year that too often in histories, CU Boulder has looked at its history in the past, and this is an endemic thing, we have neglected too many of our community members and ignored some valuable perspectives. So we are making an extra effort to uncover and identify people who have been forgotten through our history and who really do warrant recognition. And so everyone is welcome to join in that. I know some of you have decades and decades long history with CU. And so if you have names like, do you know about this person that happened back in the day? Please just bring the information forward. We really want to use this opportunity to have a more thorough history of CU documented and in place for posterity. There's also, and if you want to learn more about CU history, there's a current exhibit at the Museum of Boulder featuring what's called the Blazing Trail for 150 Years at CU Boulder. So it is a good traveling exhibit, but it's here for a while and is absolutely worth going to see. Stop by this month, and you can see the things that have happened in Boulder at CU Boulder in the past. Please also stay tuned. There are going to be so many events this coming year. This is going to be a full year-long celebration, and so there's going to be event after event to really recognize all the great things. And that, of course, is going to run into, our year will end just as Sundance arrives. And so we're going to use the end of the 150th year celebration to also be the launch of Sundance as emblematic of part of the future of the city of Boulder and CU Boulder working together. Another thing to note, I really didn't plan on just telling you how to fill up your calendar, but there's a lot of things happening. The annual CU night in downtown Boulder will be June 17th, right? This is where the university and the community come together at the Boulder Theater. Am I allowed to say who we're inviting? So you may have read in the paper that we hired a new athletic director. I think we're seeing if we get him to be the main speaker at that. And then, of course, that rolls right into Bands on the Bricks. So lots of great things happening. Like if you're bored anytime, just see what's happening at CU, and you're welcome to come and join us. This week has been a big week for us. So Tuesday, I delivered our annual State of the Campus address on campus. And it was a great opportunity to start talking about the celebratory season and really to celebrate where we've been, but also, one of the things we want to do with the 150th is not only recognize the past, but connect our past to our future. And so we spent a lot of time also talking about where we're headed. So I'd like to share some of those highlights with you today, and then also happy to take questions afterwards. One of the things that we recognize is that higher education has been a true central feature in American prosperity for decades. And we have played a key role as a bedrock in both the American global impact in terms of economic development around the globe and advocating and spreading democracy for so many decades. But really as a cornerstone that has brought so many people from around the globe to the United States, right? I have many friends from college and grad school way back in the late 80s and early 90s who came from other countries and said, yeah, they're here to get educated, and then they're going back. And they're still saying they're going to go back, but they've been here for 30, 40 years since, and have become mainstays of, the American society, our cultural growth, our economic growth in so many ways. Today we are seeing, of course, dramatic evolutions in student expectations, right? Every generation is different, and throughout history, those of us in higher ed of the faculty generation has had to understand the student generation, and in that context, it's no different. But there are fundamental differences in expectations that the students have today. If you have kids or grandkids who are high school or early college, you know what I'm talking about. And we have to adjust to that because that's our role. Our role is to have them come into our enterprise and then elevate them for when they leave. There's changes that are happening in US demographics, in geopolitics, artificial intelligence, politics, like all these things, business of athletics. So we are seeing, it's not uncommon for us to be seeing change, but the number of things that are changing all at once, I think, is what makes this time a little bit unique. Because of all these things, many of our peer institutions are really slowing down on their new initiatives, and they're showing an uncharacteristic hesitancy in launching new things, trying new things, sort of holding back to see, okay, what's the world going to be like before leaping into something new. And some of them are having the conversations, do we sort of ride this out? Do we evolve? What do we do? So here in Boulder, while we understand the challenging situations in the US and the challenging situations around the globe, our firm belief is that this is a chance not to pause, but actually to evolve from within, to assess our strengths, and then really define our future with the goal of leaping ahead of our peers, right? So if all of your peers are holding back and slowing down, and you have the ability to accelerate, right, that's a true opportunity for us to really advance who we are. So that's our big goal. And I shared with campus, and I really truly believe this, that for many reasons, CU Boulder today is on much better footing and has a strong competitive advantage over many of our peers. So we can do this not only because we recognize the moment and have the will to do it, but we're in a position that we can actually do it and I think succeed. So towards the end of my remarks on Tuesday, I launched the idea of the next big ideas at CU Boulder. And the goal is to encourage everyone in our community, faculty, staff, students, but also community members, to think about what are the next big ideas where we should invest our time and attention that'll have the biggest impact on humanity. And we're going to collect these, and a clear message that I tried to give was, it doesn't matter where you are in the organization, where you are in the organizational chart, anyone can have a big, profound idea, and we want all of these ideas to come forward. And when people would ask me well, give me 10 examples, I said, no, I don't want to influence the way people think about what can be a big, profound idea. Because often these things come, the idea of the medical MRI was a faculty member at Stony Brook sitting down alone and literally having a cheeseburger for dinner and had this idea as a chemist, and he started writing it out. And now, I've been in an MRI many times, I suspect many of you have, right? It was a big idea that's really had profound impact. And so we're trying to cast this broad net. We talk about it as like where have the biggest transformations in history come from? They all start with an idea, right? Whether it's the Greeks 2,500 years ago with the idea of what became democracy, right? Whether it was millennia of humans thinking, can we fly? And that ultimately becoming short flights and then transoceanic flights, now flights to the moon, right, and beyond. And so the idea is where it all starts. The idea of the internet, the idea of now artificial intelligence. Everything, these big transformations have started with that moment of someone having an idea. So we want people to think big. We want people to think broad. And we want them ultimately, of course, because we are a university, to sort of fit within our general mission and purpose, right? But because one of our missions is research to advance humanity, it's kind of a great catch-all of things we can do. The other important message that at CU Boulder is important that folks hear is big ideas does not necessarily equate just to science and technology, right? There are big ideas in humanities and arts. Often the connection between arts, humanities, music, and technology are where great things also can happen, right? And so if you think about the way music bridges cultures around the globe, and now the ease of musical distribution because of technology, right, that marriage is really having a powerful transformation on societies around the world. So we want to then think about how do we advance our goals as a campus, right? Because we do need some structure on that. So our first campus priority is and always will be and always has been our people, right? The success of our students, our faculty, and our staff. And so we approach this in multiple ways, what we're teaching in our curricula, right? How we think about what we call wraparound support for students from day one, right? So we're looking to expand what we call the high impact programs, the ones that we're already offering, like our first year seminars, our residential learning communities, global learning opportunities, what the arts now call digital portfolios, which was a concept that didn't exist when I was in school. And how do we take the things that we know work, right? Because student success isn't just graduating, right? It's graduation plus all the other things that go to their college experience at CU. So how do we take the things that we know succeed and invest more? And then how do we also take things that we're doing well, but we can do even better? So we know from data from around the country over long periods of time that if a student lives on or close to campus, then they're far more likely to graduate on time. And so it gives that chance to build peer relationships, right? If you live further away from campus and you go home, are you going to come back for a study group? Are you going to come back for a performance, right? Are you going to really engage in campus in that full way? So we're trying to figure out how do we expand housing on campus so we can have more students live close to us. And in the meantime, maybe that reduces traffic in Boulder, right? Because if the students are living on campus, they're not driving to and from campus, reduces air pollution from transportation, right? It's just all of these positive ripples. So you may have read about our new project on Colorado Avenue that's right across the street from campus. Current ideation, it's going to house about 1,650 students. The first phase will open in fall of 2028. And it's a public-private partnership in a way that we've not done before. And from the CU business side, it's fantastic because 1,650 new beds right across the street from campus, and campus has zero capital outlay to make it happen, right? And so it's really working closely with a developer that has purchased some of those parcels, and we're advancing this, really working together very closely, right? And because of the partnership, we are able to define what the expectations are in terms of the student experience, because we want it to feel like a residence hall like any other to the students, so they know that they're in a college environment and have all the infrastructure that typically comes with residential life. We're also, as you all know, not for the students, but looking in Louisville, right, building new housing development at that intersection of Highway 36 and McCaslin. This is going to be focusing on, well, first let me just say this is right by an RTD stop, because it's very important to us that we focus on transportation as well as housing, right? We want to think about not just where do people live, but how do they get to and from campus? What's the impact on traffic? What's the impact on the environment? And all of those things together. So this planning is underway. If you want to know a lot about it, Lori probably talks about it in her sleep because she lives and breathes it. And the goal here then is to help students and faculty and staff live closer to campus, right, for every good reason. And as I said, transportation is important. So we do give eco passes to all our students and employees to make it easier to travel. We do everything we can to support bicycles and e-bikers. I warn all of our new faculty every fall at their orientation that if they take one thing away from orientation, it's to be mindful of bicycles and scooters when they're driving around town, because as I'm sure you all know, I think they come out of the trees. You're driving along and boom, there they are. So we truly support those modes of transportation, but we also support the importance of how intermodality is important for safety. We're also about to open another residence hall this fall. It's been named Code Talker Hall to recognize, again, some great folks from our past. So the Code Talkers refers to Native Americans who worked with the military in World War II because Native American languages created codes that were basically uncrackable, right? And so we're honoring those folks. This is off of Arapahoe, right next to Boulder High. It looks like a big residence hall. It's 330 beds. So now you can think about, well, what's Colorado Avenue going to look like? 5 times bigger than that, right? It's a massive project. But we're really excited to see Code Talker. It's on time, and we'll have students in there really soon. That's not going to expand our number of beds in the near term. It's going to let us shut down Farrand Hall, which I think is still all original from, I think, maybe around World War II. So it's in dire need of a renovation, so that project will move forward also. And so we're trying to balance how do we expand our number of beds so that our students can live closer to campus with how do we make sure we can also take older residence halls offline and renovate and upgrade them. As we think about our students, right, we think about, academic success, we think about affordability in terms of housing, right? We think about the fact that we need to make food more affordable. And then we also think about the other aspects of their wellness. And so we launched this past year what we call our Student Flourishing Initiative. I wanted to call it our Student Mental Health Initiative, and the experts in the space said, let's do more than just mental health, let's think about flourishing. And so this is emphasizing both the mental and emotional health of our students. We have a truly world leader in Professor Sona Demidzian at our Crown Institute. She has been transformational in K-12 mental health and wellness in Boulder and across Colorado and really nationally and internationally. And I asked her, I said, so you're doing all this fantastic work on that side of Broadway. What about the 38,000 students on campus? And she got excited. So I was so happy when she agreed to add to her normal 80-hour a week one more big thing. But she's leading the Student Flourishing Initiative. And she's been very intentional, and this is why she's been so successful throughout her career, is that she's drawing ideas from students themselves. She has people on the team from just about every unit on campus, right? You wouldn't think of getting people from infrastructure on a Student Flourishing Initiative thinking about mental health, but the way we think about our residence halls has a big role in that student experience, and all these things fit together. So she's built out a team that represents really the entire campus and the external experts at the JED Foundation, because we know we don't know everything locally. So I'm excited to see where they're going, and we're going to be rolling out their recommendations in the coming year, along with methods of assessing the efficacy of the different things that we try. Because we don't want to create things, we'll create 10 things, and we want to figure out which are the 5 or 6 that work the best, and then sunset the other ones. The other thing that we're doing to support our community is our Basic Needs Center, which started around the pandemic. We do know from our studies, and this is it was a shocking number to me, over 20% of our students at some point in their time at CU lack food. And so we're looking at how do we do food scholarships as well as housing scholarships. The Basic Needs Center served almost 2,000 students this past year with food assistance, housing placement, emergency funds, other basic needs, right? Because we know for too many students, it's not the cost of tuition, it's the cost of everything else, housing, food, books, et cetera, that can be the obstacle to success. So if you think about all of these things we're doing, the big takeaway is we're thinking about our students holistically, right? Every aspect of their experience at CU Boulder we need to support to get them so that they graduate not just limping across the line, but dashing across the line and into the next phase of their life. To have our students succeed, right, we need to have our faculty and staff succeed, right? So I think it was Richard Brannon that said, if we take care of our employees, they take care of our customers, right? If we take care of our faculty and staff, they're going to take care of our students. They are at CU, not just for the job, but because to a person, they love students and want to see students succeed. So we did a faculty and staff survey, and they said, their own health and well-being was a concern. And coming out of COVID, this wasn't a surprise. It's a national trend. So we created the Division of Employee Health and Well-being. And that launched this past summer. And the idea is to create this culture of care across campus, right, where, again, well-being gets integrated into the workday and lives of our faculty and staff. And so we launched a whole bunch of new things this last year. We have this cool stuff on campus. It's called eGym. It would take up probably less than a quarter of this room. We are the first place in the United States to actually have this equipment and infrastructure. And it's built in a way that you can get 10, 15-minute workout in quickly. We've had people, so our faculty and our staff can sign up and go at any time. We just launched it about a week ago, and already we heard feedback from one of our custodial staff, right, who are amongst the lowest paid. And his comment was, now I can work out because I couldn't afford a gym membership. And he can work out on his time. So if he's doing a night shift, right, it's there. It's available 24/7. And so we're testing it out. And if the demand is there, then we'll expand it in more and more places across campus. But that's only one, like many things that we're trying to do, because ultimately we want to be known as the employer of choice, right? If you're working in higher ed, your goal should be to get a job at CU Boulder, no matter where you are across the country. Our second priority is scaling the research and creative work that we do, right, to have bigger impact, on communities across the state and across the world. So we have a new 3-year grant, for example, our faculty do. I didn't write it, but we got great faculty. They just got from the Andrew Mellon Foundation. And the goal of this grant is to explore how administrators and humanities faculty work together to foster free and open conversations on divisive issues and try to start rebuilding trust with higher ed. I think the most common question I've gotten in the last year is, where does CU stand on free speech? And we are grounded deeply in our commitment to free speech. We support free speech of all voices. Like, one of the roles of higher ed is to be the forum and platform for people to be able to come and speak on issues. It's a way, the ideas in our society advance through debate and through exchange. And so this grant is to help advance that idea in a way that doesn't advance divisiveness, right, but advances constructive conversations. This is a really important strength on our campus, and it's, I think, a critical focus across the country today. We're also focused very much, not just on our people, but to support people, we have to support the planet. So our third big campus focus is sustainability. Last year, we eliminated all single-use beverage plastics on campus. So if you were at a game this past year at any of our facilities, you never could buy a plastic water bottle anymore, right? They're all recyclable metal. That was a big first step. The next on my list to eliminate from campus is diesel buses, right? So we run our own bus fleet to transport students all around campus, from Willville to East Campus to Main Campus and around. We're trying to get to an all-electric fleet. We will need 18 electric buses to be all electric. We've got 8, so we need 10 more. And so we're working hard to try to do that both through our own budget and through philanthropy and through government support. But really, right now we're in what I would consider like the worst mode, because we have half a fleet of electric and half a fleet of diesel, right? So we have to maintain the ability to maintain both types of buses, right? So the sooner we can get to electric, the sooner we can shut down the whole diesel enterprise and move forward with that. We also have the Environmental Center, right, which engages students, which is super successful. They've been reducing waste by implementing reusable systems in campus dining, expanding access to research equipment so that you're more effective if you have more use of the same device rather than multiple of the same device. And we've been donating literally thousands of pieces of laboratory glassware to high school districts locally. So we've benefited more than 4,000 high school students, right, by simply sharing glassware that we've used in our laboratories also. The last big priority is what we call aligning our resources with our mission, right? Making sure that when we spend a dollar, we're spending it in the best way to meet the mission that we're pursuing. We've recently received, one of our big areas, of course, is community engagement, so we're very excited. We just received the Carnegie elective classification for community engagement. Carnegie is great at having mouthful names. Boy, that basically means Carnegie is an external not-for-profit, and they have these elective classifications. So it's sort of like earning a certificate or a badge as a campus rather than as a person. And so this is essentially saying that we are amongst the leaders in the country for how we engage our community in terms of having impact in Boulder and across the state. One recent example is with the partnership with the state's Office of Economic Development and International Trade. We have a group of students in the Masters of Engineering Environment program, and they are working with Colorado communities to help prepare them for their transition from coal power to clean power. So it's a community impact opportunity, but it's also a student learning opportunity, and it's the way that we engage across the state, right? To see the things that we learn through our ideas and through our research actually have real impact and implementation. So those are just a few. I could go on forever, but Lori would kill me. Another area of sustainability that's very local for us is our partnership between our food and dining enterprise and the Boulder County Farmers Market, right? So we have streamlined access to the farmers and the vendors who participate. Last year alone, CU Boulder purchased, and I'm amazed by the accuracy of this number, 16,663 pounds of food from the local farmers market. And that allows us to help support local farmers, but also it allows us to give locally grown and healthier made products to our students and our faculty and our staff and our guests year round. So we love every opportunity we can, right, when it's a win-win for the city of Boulder, for the Boulder community, and for the campus. This also, of course, helps us in that secondary effect. It reduces transportation emissions, right, because the more we buy things local, the less things are shipped from afar. And I mean, our students love it. My son's a first-year student at CU, and he absolutely, his biggest conversation piece is like, which residence hall has the best food, the second best food. He'll tell you if you're going to be eating at one and you want to know what to get, he'd be happy to tell you what the best items are. But it's really meaningful to him, even as a 19-year-old, that he's getting locally grown, healthy food in his diet. It's also a piece of our bigger effort, which is what we call our Buy Local program, right, which really encourages all of our units. So across our campus, all of our units typically make their own buying decisions. But by having this Buy a Local program, right, it encourages them to engage with local businesses, right, rather than products that are being shipped in from longer distances. So again, we see ourselves as being an integral partner and part of this Boulder community. The other thing that we're constantly doing, and Lori has been a champion of this, and I'm sure many of you are involved, and if you aren't but you want to, Lori's sitting right here, feel free to inundate her. We are trying to expand our internship, mentorship, and job placement programs with local businesses, government agencies, and organizations, right? One thing we know about CU Boulder is that when students come here from everywhere, they don't really want to leave. And so the more we can connect them to local opportunities for after graduation or even while they're students, right, the more it can help the community, but also the more it helps our students. So this has been great. I've met a number of the students who have joined this program as it's ramped up, and they're really, they're excited because it means they get to spend the summer here if they're not taking classes, and they're building relationships off campus as well as on campus. So again, this is one of those partnerships where we help each other in, I think, in meaningful ways. One last example I will give you is from February 20th, so starting next week through April 11th, students at our Leeds School of Business will be offering free in-person tax preparation through an IRS Volunteer Incoming Tax Assistance Program. You can tell it's a government program because it's got a long acronym, right? So it's VITA, Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program. So this program is hosted in the Colville building on campus. It's designed for taxpayers earning less than $69,000, people with disabilities, or those with limited English proficiency. And we've been doing this how long, Lori? A number of years, longer than Lori knows, which means it's a long time. So we're excited about that, and we're happy to spread the word and build this program up. Again, it's service to the community, but it's also a great opportunity for our students, right, to have real experiences doing real tax forms. So that's also an opportunity. I've talked about Sundance, so I'll skip that page. We are really thrilled, though, to top off on Sundance for the opportunity it's bringing to the community, right? We're happy to have played a big role in partnering with the city to bring the festival here. But the biggest surprise for me is how many students and faculty who aren't from film, who aren't from that sort of entertainment part of the world, who have just said, how do I get involved in Sundance? I mean, students from engineering, right? Students from the College of Education, from all across our campus, just wanting to experience it. And so we're really excited. There's a lot to do to make it happen. We sent a group of people there to enjoy the festival a few weeks ago, but also to see what it entails. And I will say the excitement from the Sundance people for this is actually huge also. I will end by going back to your calendar. One more thing to put on it. So, every year for 60 plus 70 years, we've had the Conference for World Affairs. 78 years. This year it will be April 13th to 16th. And the more you can come, the better. But the one thing you may want to make particular note of, this year's keynote speaker will be Malala Yousafzai, right? So Malala spent her childhood blogging anonymously about life under the Taliban in Pakistan, and especially its ban on girls' education. She survived an assassination attempt when she was 15, and she's truly devoted her life to championing education for girls worldwide. She was the youngest Nobel Prize winner in history. She grew up where girls didn't have access to education, but she managed to graduate from Oxford. She's a best-selling author. We are so excited that she's coming in April, so please do mark your calendar, and when tickets go for sale, be fast, because this one's going to be popular. Really appreciate the time to talk to you. I could go on about all the great things happening at CU, but I'd rather pivot and give you guys time for any questions, and thank you for the attention.
We do only have a few minutes for questions.
Okay.
You talked about academic freedom, which I appreciate very much your comments, but there's pressures going on. You know, you have funders from the government, from private funders, and sometimes there's strings. At least there has been lately. What are you doing about that? How do you deal with that?
So in times of challenge, I think it's important for any person or organization to be grounded in their ideals and their vision and their mission. And for us, free speech and academic freedom is so fundamental that we won't relinquish on that. For me, the personal experience that I lean on back then is going back to Chicago area. I was 12 years old, so I'm going to give you my age. Sorry, Chris. 1977, living in Skokie, Illinois, Skokie, Evanston, right, where which at the time was the largest population of Holocaust survivors in the country, and the American Nazi Party wanted to march, right? And there's lots of history written on it. That case is still like the foundational case in American jurisprudence on free speech and rights to speak and march. But that was like half a mile from my grandmother's house. And so at that time, the ACLU was a significant amount of their funding came from Jewish Americans. They lost vast amounts of their funding because they actually represented the American Nazi Party in their First Amendment rights. They have, of course, rebounded from that, but like they stood on the principle. It's more important that we stick with our free speech and our academic freedom with risk, right? So we're, of course, we're very mindful of, when people ask us, what are you going to do if ICE comes to campus? I'm not going to make a big public statement about how we won't let ICE on campus because, we're not trying to, invite conflict, but we will always stand by, the absolute rule of free speech and academic freedom. Thank you.
I just want to let you know that this will be our last question.
No pressure.
Goodness gracious. My name is Kitty. Thank you so much for being here today. And I have a softball question. It's no surprise to anybody here that I am very nationally engaged in sororities and fraternities. And I was wondering how the campus is now doing with our sorority and fraternity population because they've increased over the last several years.
Yeah. So our Division of Student Life is there to support all of our students. And so they engage frequently and heavily with every fraternity and sorority that is open to the conversation. It gets tricky because, of course, many of our fraternities have chosen not to be affiliated with us. But we still know that the people in those fraternities are our students, right? And so our obligation is to support our students, whether they choose to be an affiliated organization or not. The relationship with the sororities, I think, is much easier than with the fraternities, right? Because they are affiliated. But it's an important part of it's one of those pieces of student life that many of our students gravitate to. And so our goal is to make sure that they, are informed about campus resources, right? That they understand what the processes are to get support, but also to support each of them as individual students. And that's where the fraternities and sororities are actually an opportunity for us, right? Because anytime we have them all grouped together, it's easier to talk to them as a group, with their peers, with their friends, right? To help them go through the adjustment of being 18 to being 21. So thank you.
Hi, Justin.
Hi.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
It's taken a while to get you here. We promised you a first year without any standing in front of us and telling us all about it. I didn't realize until you looked at that birthday table that you had a birthday on Monday. But since you've already spoken words, maybe we won't ask you to give any words of wisdom.
Okay.
I think you could.
I was already told I used my time.
Yes, you have. Well, and the other thing is you talk about big, audacious ideas. I would say years ago, Rotary did just that when it decided to partner with Bill Gates and others with the eradication of polio, which you may know from your granddad. So in your honor and appreciation for your speaking us today, we have a certificate for 100 doses of Polio Plus Fund.
Thank you.
In your honor. Thank you so much for being here.